And now we're recording. So I'm here with
Awesome.
Vera Bonsi. Is that
Yes.
fair? Okay.
Yes.
Who is in a region that is near the capital city. Would that be fair?
Yes. In
Okay.
Accra.
So tell everybody a little bit about where you're from.
All right. So hi everyone. I'm Vera Bonsi. I'm originally from Ghana. From the Volta region. In Ghana. Volta region is usually kind of closer to Togo, which is another country. But my family kind of relocated from there to Accra, which is the capital city of Ghana. So basically, almost everybody that after education wants a better life, they move from their various original states and cities, and then they come to the capital city for a better life.
And so your family moved when you were born or before then?
I believe before then, my dad was moved to Tema, which is kind of like in the greater Accra area. So he moved, and then he kind of met my mom. So then they settled in the Tema Accra area, and then they had me.
So you've known Accra since birth. You've grown up there.
Yes. Yes.
Do you go back, and I'll use this term, and if I'm wrong, just say so. Do you go back to the village at all?
The last time I visited, yes, I did go back to the village. It's actually usually a very beautiful experience because everything there is very green, very forest, very communal. People are together, people are very warm, welcoming. So yes, the last time I came, which was over 17 years ago, I did, every time I come, I have to go to the village, and yeah.
Now you go back and forth between, and we'll talk about your story in a minute, but you go back
Yeah.
and forth between Ghana and the United States, right?
Correct. So, but initially, when we moved from Ghana, my dad moved us to Botswana, which is in southern Africa. So he had again gone for greener pastures. South Africa was like, after the collapse of apartheid, South Africa was booming with business, was booming looking for workers. So my dad, on his way to look for greener patches, kind of landed in Botswana, which is kind of close next to South Africa. So we settled in Botswana. My family settled until my dad passed away. And then I got a full scholarship to come and study in the United States.
And where did you study at?
Principia College in Illinois.
Okay, okay.
Mama,
So
Mama.
you by the nature of being in Ghana, speak multiple languages, correct?
Correct.
What languages do you speak?
I mean I left a long time, but I can speak some Tree, which is not my dialect, because every region where you're from, it's kind of a different language. So the region where Nana actually is from, Lucky's from, is called the Ashanti region, and they speak Tree. So I do speak the Tree because it's commonly spoken in the capital city. Since most people have multiple languages, either you learn how to speak English so you can communicate with other people, or the Tree is a very common language where everybody is easy to learn, so people are able to speak it across the border. So I speak the Chi, some bit of Ewe from my area, but I left home a long time. But when you're talking, I can understand everything when they speak. And then I also can understand some Krobo, which is the people in the greater Accra area. They have the Gan language, and then they have the Krobo. It's kind of like you have French and you have Creole. So, yeah.
So you basically speak, I think you said 3 different or 4 different languages?
Yeah, 3, 4 there.
So Nana has joined us. Hello, Nana, how are you?
I'm doing well, and yourself, Charles. Hey, Vera.
I'm good.
Hi.
So we were just doing a little introduction. So Nana, why don't you introduce yourself, where you're originally from, how long you, and I know you primarily live in the States, So when did that transition take place?
So I came here in May of 1997. And I lived in Pagedale, U City area.
Mhm.
And so
Before
I've pretty
that,
much been in
when you lived in Africa, where did you live? You lived in Ghana.
So when I lived in Ghana, I lived at Bantama. And Bantama is in Kumasi, and Kumasi is in the Ashanti region. Kumasi also happened to be the second biggest city in Ghana besides Accra.
Now, when you all talk about regions, is that like our counties, so to speak, or what would that be akin to in the United States?
So if we are thinking of Ghana as a country, then our regions will be states.
All right.
So if United States is a country and Missouri is a state, then Ashanti region is also a state. So for example, Ashanti region have 4.7 million people living there. And I don't even know the population in Missouri, I'm sorry, but
I don't either.
Kumasi have a population of 3.3 million.
Okay. And Ghana is basically the size of Oregon, from what I found out. Just letting you know that.
Yes.
But what I have learned is we confuse Africa as being one. It's a continent. It's not necessarily like the United States, but we keep acting like it is. Do you find that, and do you find it frustrating that you have to explain that all the time?
Is that question for Vera or for me?
Oh, both.
Vera, do you want to handle this one?
Yeah, so I remember when I first came to college, and I landed in Principia College, and one of my sociology classes conversation came up where it was assumed that Africa is just one big continent and we're all like the same. So it was kind of an educational moment for me to kind of teach my fellow American students that no, just like you have the United States of America is a country, but African in itself, it's a continent. So that means that Ghana is a country, South Africa is a country, Botswana is a country, Liberia is a country. And yes, everybody in these different countries are totally different. So it's example when you take Australia or New Zealand, and you take America, the American continent, the people, they are totally different. So you cannot say they're all one people, even though you have a lot of like white European population. So Africa is not just it's not one big country. It is a continent that has various countries within them, and within even these countries, they are totally different. People speak different languages, people's way of life are totally different. So for example, I have the privilege of living in Botswana, and when I arrived in Botswana, excuse me, sorry, my kids were in the background. So when I had the privilege of going to Botswana, I had a total culture shock, because all the people in the southern part of Africa, their way of life, their way of thinking, how their morality, everything is totally different from Ghana. So definitely the African continent is very, the various countries are very distinct, very different on their own, even though we might all look like the same skin color, but we are not the same, or the cultures are very different.
Even when you went inside the continent, you went to a different country that had very different ways of living, and you had to adjust to that even in the continent. So it's not like going from St. Louis to Chicago, where maybe things are a little different, but not a whole lot. You're talking about a complete change.
Yes, yes. Total complete change. Total complete change. I had a culture shock when I moved to Botswana, so they are very different from us, different from Ghanaians. Their food is different. The way they dress is very different. Even in the education system, which I had the opportunity of going to their high school and the university, absolute different. Total culture shock. One of my culture shock moments were when I saw a student challenging a teacher. I was completely shocked because in Ghana, you cannot challenge your teacher, go back and forth with the teacher, argue with the teacher, back and forth. It's seen as a sign of disrespect. But when I got to Botswana, I witnessed that moment where a student was actually telling the teacher, "You're wrong," and will go to the board to correct the teacher. I was shocked. So it's totally different way of life.
Nana, you passed on this earlier, but I am going to come back. Do you get tired of having this conversation? Like here in the United States, I have to remind white folks what Black people go through. You have to probably do, I would say, the same around being Ghanaian, all the time. Would that be fair?
So I used to go through the process of trying to inform people, and then I realized that with Google, everybody who genuinely wants to know can access information through Google. So then I stopped, because I also realized that some people, when they meet you and you are from Africa, they feel the need to somehow ask you questions that they intend to make you feel inferior. The idea is to make you feel inferior. So once I realized when I realized that the goal of the questioning is to somehow make me feel like I'm coming from some place that is, anyway, I tend to pivot and I ask them, can they hand me their phone? And I just go and I type in Ghana and I tell them to push search. I think that's kind of a little bit arrogant on my part, but at 20 some years, you get tired of people not knowing they can go on Google and find information.
True. I agree. Vera, you go back and forth between the United States and Ghana. Is there a shock every time you leave one to go to another? Do you have to like readjust every time?
Is that me or Vera?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Do you have to readjust because you go back and forth on a regular basis? Do you have to readjust to the place that you go back to every time?
For me it's yes, because when I came, when I was in Ghana, there was a certain way that I did my things and a certain mindset, and then when I moved to Botswana molded me a lot, like in regards to the way I think, the way I do my things, educational wise. So when I moved to the United States, I realized that things move much faster. When you put in a little bit of hard work, it goes a long way. And then even people about, the capitalism system, people are about, what, if you work hard, you get rewarded, right? And then things, when you want something, it gets done. So when I come back to Ghana, things are moving, but in a different, how should I say, capacity, where people's way of life is totally different. So it kind of hits me again, like, I have to kind of remind myself to kind of switch, because when I come here, for example, I was waiting for Uber the other day and I was like losing my mind because the Uber driver, the coordinates, in Ghana and the coordinates in the US are so well done. So I never have an Uber driver like basically get lost on me for 10 minutes, and I'm standing here and the Uber driver gets lost because the coordinates are not well ingrained in the system. So he kept going round and round. So I had to remind myself, Vera, you're not in America. And this is the way things work here. This is the way they have arranged things. So sometimes it's the pace at which things move that it frustrates me. I feel like it's not moving in a much faster pace for me. But also, when you come here, also you understand that's how people, that's how the system works for people with the pace that they go at, and it works for them. People are happy about it, even if they complain. They still like, what, this is the way things run here. So I always have to kind of readjust when I come. And that's reminding myself I'm back to Ghana now, and things are totally, it's not the same as in the US.
Okay. I guess one of the questions I'm going to ask several different kind of weird questions. So also, I already Nana, I already heard about the heat. So we got that conversation done. But so Saturday morning, I am in either Kamasu or Accra. What would you show me to do? And
This question is for me or Vera?
It's either, well, about your home. What would we be doing?
Okay, so a typical Saturday morning, Charles, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, you just made a mistake. You asking me a question about what you would do if you were in Accra. I'm from Kumasi. I can tell you what to do in Kumasi. Vera can tell you what to do in Accra.
I'm sorry. So yes. So you and I are in Kumasi. What would we be doing? What is there to do?
So for me, Kumasi, we have a tradition where we bury the dead on Saturdays. The closest I can bring you to our funeral is what you will witness in New Orleans. I remember when I first came to America, there was for some reason I saw something on television, and it was a funeral procession in New Orleans. And I remember telling my ex-husband that the people in New Orleans were from Kumasi, because everything that they were, I swear to God, I hope he's watching this because he knows I said that. I told him, I said, these are Ashanti people. Everything they were doing, carrying the body, marching the body to the burial, the festivities of the funeral. It was so Saturday morning in Kumasi that I actually wanted to go to New Orleans. And I didn't know that it was like miles and miles away. I told him, can we just get in the car and drive? Because I want to go join the procession. So yeah, I had no idea that we would have to fly to get to New Orleans, But Saturday morning is dedicated to burying the dead. And so if we were in Kumasi on a Saturday morning, trust me, we will be going to somebody's funeral. And it's a party. It's not really about sadness. It's really a going home celebration. Very much very much the same as what happens in New Orleans. Yeah.
I think Vera's probably having a little difficulty. Oh, she's back. So Vera, asking you the same question. If we were in Accra, what would we be doing on a Saturday?
For me, when on a Saturday, I get to see my friends. The beach is right there, actually. So my kids love the beach. I love the beach. And Ghanaians, love the beach. You go the beach side, even, in the season of coronavirus, you actually will find people out there having a good time. And also, as Nana said, in my village, typically the weekends are for funerals. So if I was in my village, I'll be attending a lot of funerals as well. So Saturdays definitely are for funerals in Ghana.
Yeah.
What about the Here, I'll ask it this way. So you both moved here. What,
Mhm.
give me a little sense of your first couple of months, 6 months, when you first got here. I want to know what you learned about America from where you were from and how that differed from when you got here.
So for me, everything that I knew about America had come from my father's own visit to America. But he came in the 70s. So his opinion of America that I heard from him was from the 70s. And of course, I also may have seen a couple of movies that was made in America. So as far as my opinion about America, the people of America, it was from my father's encounters with the people. And as far as images, it was from movies. And of course, the movies were Boys in the Hood, which was a famous one. And there was another one called Colors. Besides Boys in the Hood, there was another famous movie called Colors. That was the other one that I have seen. And I think I may have seen Pretty Woman or a few other odd movies, but yeah, those were the images I had known. And of course, I did know some of America's history from my father.
Did that, so once you got here, was that an accurate depiction of it, of America for you? Or did you go, wait, I need to rethink this? There's other things that are going on I don't know about?
As far as what I may have seen in the movie,
Versus what you, when you actually landed and you started living, did it change?
it didn't change, it was affirmed. Yeah, it did not change, it was affirmed. And then, of course, you also realize that different cities and different states have different circumstances, but that doesn't come immediately. You have to actually, I always tell people it takes 10 years for the average immigrant to even adjust to America. And then it takes another 10 years to even try to assimilate. So I'm over 20 years in, and I have a very good idea of what America is. But when you first come in, it's a bit confusing, especially if you are trying to compare Hollywood images to reality.
Vera, how about you?
For me, I feel like Botswana kind of prepared me for America. So when I was in Ghana, it was like I was not much concerned about, okay, what is America? I mean, we had people that would travel for better, for a greener pasture, a greener life. But I wasn't like too focused about it as to, like Nana said, we'll see things on the movie. We saw the African American and how they dressed, and it was very intriguing. You see, things like, I saw, I think, Home Alone, parts 1 and 2. So, I was like, okay, so, and then I moved to Botswana, and Botswana is kind of like a bit similar to America in such a way that, because they had the with South Africa, it was the appetite, so there was a lot of infiltration of the European lifestyle in there. So where they, then they have winter there, so that was my first experience of winter when I got to Botswana. So by the time I got to America, it wasn't totally of a shock. It was more like, okay, like, it's just amazing how much I realized they didn't know about me, how much they didn't know about where I was coming from. I had one woman, when after church service, because my school was a Christian school, say, "You speak really good English." And I was like, okay, well, we speak English where I come from. So it was just, for me, that was the shock, was like how much ignorant a lot of people were and didn't know much about Africa or people living in Africa. Because I think the assumption was that we spoke multiple languages and we didn't understand English.
Yeah.
When you,
We.
you all, yeah, I know. Were you taught about slavery when you were younger in school or no? And when did you learn about slavery?
So for me, I learned about slavery in a very strange way. My family had oral history of 7 people who went missing in our family. And I remember, I have to tell you this story. I was probably 7 years or 8 years, and somebody died. And before they bury the dead, they pour libation. And in the process of pouring libation, they recite names of those who have already departed. And then after they did that, they pour libation and they recited names of the missing, who the person who was reciting the name said, we hope these people come back, and we hope wherever they are, you all who have departed, and you who is joining the departed, we hope you tell the ancestors that we are still looking for these 7 people and that we want their help in finding them, or we want some kind of a sign in what happened to them. I would have been 7 years old, because I remember after the funeral and everything, I remember asking my grandmother at the time, who were these 7 people? Also, the names that they were reciting, some of the names were in the family, including even my grandmother's name was part of the recitation. So I was very confused. And she said, well, I was named after the female who went missing. And she said, oh, your uncle was named after the male who went missing. So then I realized that they were actually keeping these missing people alive by naming newborns after them.
Wow.
So then I asked my grandma, well, what happened to them? And she told a unique story of a Tuesday that was like the worst day of their life. And that in that one Tuesday, early in the morning, a set of twin boys, their father and their uncle and the mother went to the farm. So that would be 5 people. They went to the farm, and by 1 or 2 p.m., when people were beginning to return, some people didn't return. And these 5 people, when they didn't return, the wife and the brother-in-law went looking for them. And the wife and the brother-in-law never came back. So in one day, my own family lost 7 people. Those 7 people could be anywhere in America. I mean, their descendants could be anywhere in America. We don't know, but their names are very much alive in my family. Also, we continue to have sets of twins in my family. So every set of twins that are born in my family are named after those set of twins, whether they are twin boys, twin girls, or fraternal twins. If you deliver twins in my family, you are to name the twins after these people. So over the time, as I'm going to school and I'm hearing about the Portuguese and, you know, as I'm hearing about the story of invasion and conquering of Africa, leading up to colonization and extraction of people, however the story is told, every time I would go home and tell my grandmother the history lessons, she will say, yeah, the people that we lost, they could have ended up on those ships. So that's how I learned that slavery had somehow affected my own family, and that 7 family members had been gone in one day. And to end the story, in that town or in that village, almost every household have the same story that I'm telling you. Almost every household lost the people who went to farm that day. And because of this, in that village on Tuesdays till today, they don't go to the farm. There is a myth that if you went to farm on a Tuesday, you won't come back. And that is still there today. They don't go there on Tuesdays.
Wow.
That's how I learned about slavery. So I'm still looking for those 7 people. Hopefully, if I did my DNA, it will connect me to them one day. Who knows?
Vera, were you taught this in school, or did you learn it sort of the same way now?
Well, so I have a different story because my family owned slaves. And you know, I always say that, you know, the whole slavery thing, it comes in 2 parts. So I remember when I was young, I went to the village with my mom and we saw a man that had his ears pierced. And I was fascinated as a little kid because I thought only women, when they give birth to us at a certain age, they pierce your ear just to indicate that, you're officially like a female or something. But in this case, I saw a couple of this men that had their ears pierced. So I would like ask my mom, and she started telling me how they were slaves that were bought by my great grandfather, and they were brought from the north. So their structure, their demeanor is different. So my great grandfather used to have like a big cocoa farm, and cocoa is like a big deal. And I mean, those times it was a huge deal. And most time the people give birth, it's the number of sons you have that indicates how wealthy you're gonna be. Because if you have a larger cocoa farm, you need a lot of, strong, children, specifically men, to farm the cocoa. So my great grandfather would go and basically buy this slaves and then bring them to the farm to farm the cocoa. And then at some point he let some of them go. But the indication how you knew those people, because they were not our people. They were bought from, I think, the northing, wherever they were trading slaves. So when they came to settle with us, they would pierce their ears to indicate that they were not one of us. They were slaves. And it was just like, really, really weird things, even with the women that were among them. So there was a way they would mark them to indicate, like skin marks to indicate that these ones were slaves that were bought. So that was my experience with it. That's how I knew. I was surprised, like, well, people sell people. And my mom was just saying, yeah, these people came and they were serving your great grandfather. So but at some point he let them go. And then, of course, when, we were in Accra in Ghana, we knew about the Elmina Castle. It was a public knowledge. We all knew one of the treasures of Ghana was Elmina Castle. And, it's a public knowledge what actually took place in there, where they were basically taking slaves in there to ship them to America. I believe that my education was more intense when I was in Botswana because of the apartheid, because Botswana was they were more in depth about how their country was, how the Europeans came in and how they took over. So I started kind of being curious about my own country and like kind of going back to like, well, what actually happened? Because when you go to Southern Africa, they do a really good job of talking about the apartheid. They're very proud about their culture, but they're also very proud about talking about how they were able to survive during the apartheid years and how they overcame and how they won. Mandela at that time, Nelson Mandela, it was like, when I moved there, it was like, he was like the most dominant thing that was going on was Nelson Mandela was out of prison. He was the president at that time when I was in Botswana. So he was trying to bring the people together. But I remember sitting on Botswana TV when Mandela had been sworn in as president, and they were doing the reconciliation panel tribunal, where they would actually bring white people and black people in the same room, and they would narrate the atrocities that were done by the white people to the black people, and the white people will ask for forgiveness. And that's where I found out that Winnie Mandela was actually not the hero that everybody thought she was. I learned a lot about her when she was fighting for freedom, how she did a lot of crooked stuff. For example, killing her own people just to gain power. So again, I said Botswana did change me a lot in regards to, I started seeing the whole of Africa. I started seeing how much there was European invasion or the Europeans coming in, how much they kind of distracted everything. But the South Africans are very strong in maintaining their way of life, in maintaining who they are, in maintaining their language. One of the things that I was really proud when I was there is when a South African can speak English, they don't care whether you can speak their language or not. They will walk into a room full of like foreigners and they will start speaking their language. They're like, you catch on with me. You catch on with me. You have to learn. So I was forced when I was there to kind of like learn their language of it just to survive. But again, my awakening about what happened in Ghana came from living in a post-apartheid South African, nation.
What do you think, both of you? What are some of the misconceptions that Americans have? And Nana, you kind of alluded to this earlier. What are some of the misconceptions, other than Africa being all of one? What are some of the misconceptions that both whites and African Americans or blacks have about Africa? Or what are
Okay,
some of them? A few
some
of them.
of them. So I happen to know both white people and both black people. It just so happened that typically I come to know white people because somebody will introduce me to them, or they will be introduced to me because they have been to Africa before. At least that's been my encounters with white people here. It's typically because they went to some missionary trip. It could have been anywhere in Africa, and for some reason they came back to America, live in St. Louis, and somebody said, oh, I know this lady from Africa. So then they get to meet me and they find out that I'm from Ghana, and they went to Kenya, and Kenya is in East Africa and Ghana is in West Africa. And I have no idea what's happening in East Africa, let alone Kenya, the one country. So misconception is people typically think, oh, she's from Africa. We should ask her Africa questions and she would know, right? Wrong. I know only about Ghana, and even in Ghana, I only know Kumasi, where I live, Bantama. As far as my encounter with African Americans, I was married to an African American. I work in an all Black hair salon called MAPS in the Delma Loop. So my encounter have always been with African Americans. However, it was with African Americans who were woke and also very much interested in learning about Africa. And so by the time they meet me, they are already prepared or understand that is a big continent, and that if they have a question, they have to narrow it down to what I would know. So I would say most of the African Americans that I know are what you would call Afrocentric, and typically I don't have any issues talking to them about Ghana or even the continent of Africa, just because they are I've also learned more about myself and even my culture from African Americans. You'll be shocked to know that just because I may be able to speak my tribal language and I can pinpoint where I'm from, it doesn't really mean I know much about myself. There are African Americans who have taken great interest in learning about African cultures, and sometimes I have been educated by African Americans because of their own interest in knowing about Ghana. One such person was a friend of mine who recently passed away. His name was Larry Deskins. He loved African art. He knew everything about African art. Talking to him was like learning about my own self. He taught me more about even the Ashanti Kingdom than I knew, that I could ever dream of. So I have to give credit to so many African Americans that I met, particularly Naps Hair Salon, the owner, Makat, who did a great job back in the 90s, making her salon not just a place you come and get your hair done, but you came to get knowledge too. So most of my own education about myself have come from being around African Americans, and I'm grateful for it.
Vera?
Yeah.
Well, again, my experience was totally different. So I came on, I came to college straight from Botswana University, came to college in Illinois. And it was predominantly white students. So it was, and I came as an international student. One of the things that the school promoted was international student celebrations, Ghana independence. So we had various students from Kenya, from Nigeria, and from Ghana, from other African countries. And for me, when I was in Botswana, moving from Ghana to Botswana, I encountered a lot of other people from other African nations that I wouldn't have if I was in Ghana. So for the first time, I met a Zimbabwean. So I met a Kenyan person. I met a Mozambique person. I met a South African person. I met someone from Swaziland. I met somebody from Ethiopia. I met somebody from Eritrea, and it was like I said, we when I was in Botswana, we will have cultural days. So I started learning about now I know when I see this food, like I know this is Kenya, I know this is Ethiopian, I know this is from South Africa, this is from Mozambique, this is from Nigeria. So I had that interaction, and when give me 1 second.
Vera, I gotta get a kiss together.
Talk about being a woman. I got it. So because of the time change, so they're not sleeping.
Right.
So I remember coming to Principia College, and basically I met a lot of other African students. So we would always get together to do, and the school did fund this. So it was kind of like they wanted us to, educate them. They wanted to learn about where we were coming from. And so they would design it like a month, a day, for International Student Festival, where we will showcase our clothes, our shoes, our food, and the entire student community board will come around and basically, enjoy the food. So, there was always that interest. And, whenever we had like a stands, like we'll have a Ghanaian stand, a Nigerian stand, a Kenyan, they will come around and ask questions. So again, like I said, there was that ignorance was very much there, like people didn't know, even though Nana said there's Google, people can Google, but until somebody meets someone from Kenya, that's when they want to learn everything right there. So the International Student Festival kind of provided that kind of like, avenue for, them to learn about our cultures. So one of the things I remember that was very problematic on campus was whenever the African guys were doing their dance, they had this dance called Dombolo from the Congolese. And there was a lot of like, they had to shake a lot of their behind. So I remember there was somebody went and complained, like a white student went and complained that it was too sexual. And it became like a whole big thing. We're like, oh, it's just our dance. We don't think, like when we're dancing, we don't think that there's anything sexual. It's just our way of expressing ourselves. So it became a moment of learning where, we all have to sit down as a community to understand, listen, it's just like somebody's doing salsa, somebody is doing jazz, this is the way we do our stuff. It has nothing to do with a sexual, like kind of intentional to being something sexually explicit. So I can tell you confidently, like I remember when sitting in classrooms, it was a lot of arguments, a lot of questions, a lot of people thinking they know, and then you educate them and they are very resistant, but at the end they kind of like embrace what you're teaching them. So yeah.
Do you all feel that do you feel that you're part of the African American community now, or will there always be some separation between being African and being African American?
Okay, for me, I've
Yeah.
always, from the time I set foot here, I was part of the African American community. My ex-husband was African American. His sisters, his aunties, everybody embraced me. I was here alone. The rest of my family members that were in America lived in New York. So his family became my family. And then once I had my daughter, she was raised here. So all her play dates were with her father's side of the family, which is African American. So, and like I said, I work at NAPS, Natural African People Professional Hairstyles. So working at NAPS made me part of the African American community. So I don't think I have ever been anything but a part of the African American community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I had, most of the time I met people through school. And again, through school, I actually came around St. Louis. I met Nana as well. So usually I would meet like students that were African American. I remember I went to WashU, so there was like a Black student, community that would get together. So for me, when I got to grad school, that was where predominantly because my college was predominantly white. So either if there were no white students, then they were like typical African students. So we didn't have a lot of African American like students coming. When I got to Washington University, it was a large. So I got, we do events together. We also did African international festivals together. I just felt that, there was always like, the Africans who end up grouping together, the Americans will always end up grouping together. And I saw this in college a lot. It was like the clique, there was always a clique going on. So either you went to high school with them, either you grew up somehow with them. So there was always that clique going on, even though we all come together to do like events together on campus, but then there was always that separation of, okay, we're all from Ghana, so we all hang out together, or we're all from Africa, we're all hanging out together, and then we all from, we are African Americans, we hanging out together. So there was always like that separation. Again, we'll come together to do stuff, but there was always that separation. And it was heavily felt for me in grad school. It was heavily felt because I don't think I came out of college. I came out of grad school with, I hang out with a lot of them heavily, but once we got out of grad school, it was done. The relationships where it was like, okay, that's it. But then I kept in touch with the typical African students. We're still in touch. We're still friends. One of my experiences, I work as a director in my company now, and my director was African American. So I work really well with her. I really work with her. I wanted to support her. I wanted her to succeed. And, I came with my mindset, my African mindset. It's like, you got to work hard. You got to support your boss. And she really liked me, and we worked well together. And then when it was time for promotion, I found that she went behind my back to pull me down. And it really like hit me because I feel like she didn't want to give it to me because I wasn't African American. And she was fighting for the other African American person to get it. But I thought, well, we're all Black people, so we should help each other. It didn't matter. So far as I qualified for it, we should get, you should support me. I'm there, but I saw she was pushing for the other African American person. She ended up, succeeding, and it was given to the other African American person. And then the promotion came again. Again, she wanted it to be given to another Black person, not me. And I was like the only Black person from Africa. So she just kept coming at me until, surprisingly, it was the white, our boss was white. So it was the boss that kind of fought for me and told her that I'm going to give the promotion to Vera. So it's kind of like, and then I had somebody in HR who was African American. She was also very, very instrumental. She saw how hardworking I was. She felt like we were all Black. We needed to stick together. So she, on the other hand, was pushing for me to get the promotion. So it was, that was my first experience, having that true experience where, I felt like she didn't want me to have it because I wasn't African. And on the other hand, there was somebody in HR who was an African American lady, and she wanted me to have it because I was Black, and she felt like I was qualified. She wanted to push me to get the promotion. So it's always like a mix. I'm sorry. I to stop, please. It's always like a mix, relationship, whatever especially in the workplace, when you are around with African American, because you don't know how they perceive you as an African. Sometimes they see you as a threat because they feel like you're going to take over their position or you might outrun them. So, but I think it's also a human thing, but it's a human thing that we all go through. Sometimes, because of fear, we think that if somebody, is doing a better job than us, we might become irrelevant. But again, like I said, it really hit home when in my workplace where I felt she didn't want to help me because I was African, but I had another African American lady who was fully, in my boat. So that's been my experience.
That's
So can I say something to that?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
Vera, I want you to know that this whole life is about relationships. And I'm so glad that you pointed out that on the other hand, there was an African American woman who was your boss who didn't want you to get the help. And yet there was another African American woman in HR who wanted you to get the job. What I've come to learn is whether it's female-male relationship and it's Black people involved, it always boils down to your relationship with the person that is in power. Now, if sometimes they find you to be a threat to them, they might hold you back. And it doesn't mean because you are from Africa or whatever. You could be anybody. If they find you to be a threat to them in any kind of way, look, it could be because you are taller than them. It could be because you are thinner or bigger than, whatever the reason is. I am an entrepreneur. So I haven't had I haven't experienced job place discrimination. However, I have experience going up against other vendors in situations where a vendor wants to come in and want to outbid me and take the contract from me. And I have to say that one of my biggest contracts, I lost to somebody from Ghana. A guy from Ghana came in and somehow was able to outbid me and form a better relationship with the company that I was buying from. Now, if it had been somebody who wasn't Ghanaian, if they had been a different race or different cultural background, I could have easily blamed it on some kind of favoritism from my supplier. But this was a situation where it was from somebody from Ghana. He just happened to be a man. So on behalf of all women on International this Women Day, the men are the worst enemy we got. So Vera, my enemy was a Ghanaian man. However, So to Vera, I want you to know that what you do is to stay creative, stay ahead of the game. That's what I have done. Every time I've gotten outbid by somebody and it knocks me out, I move on and I come up with a new opening. That's one of the reasons why I love playing chess. I have so many openings and different strategies. So Vera, keep going, and remember, if one person doesn't open the door, somebody else is going to open it.
So the last question
That's really, yes.
last question I have for each of you.
Yes.
First of all, thank you all for doing this. I greatly appreciate it. Once we stop recording, the system will let me download it. I'll get it on Facebook. I'll get it on Instagram and LinkedIn, and you all will get a copy. The last question I have for both of you is, if I called you and said, I am moving to Ghana, to your respective area, what 2, 3, 4 things would you tell me, remind me, suggest to me about the difference between where I am now in America and what I might expect in your respective region?
Wow, that's a loaded question. But for me, okay, especially coming back to visit, one of the things that really upset me is the road. It's really upset me. I see Ghanaians are very hardworking. Ghanaians, when I look around, there is, I realize that we Ghanaians are business. Okay, everywhere I see a store, everywhere I see the average Ghanaian trying to make a living, and I see that the system is not very supportive of the citizens. So one of the main things for me is the road system. So if you are in America, be prepared to meet up with a lot of potholes. If you're gonna drive, I would not drive in Ghana because I would not be a good driver, because I see how amazing my Uber driver, like, he knows how to maneuver the potholes, how to avoid the traffic. It's just the roads are really a big issue here. For me, I feel like it's a safety issue here. I always get mortified when I see how the drivers, they just going, like, there's no traffic lights in certain areas. The drivers are just making the best out of the situation. So I was telling my Uber driver, I'm like, wow, I really, really admire you working in this condition. So I believe that if you're moving here, that's one of the main things that, for me, if I'm advising an African American person or anybody from America, be prepared to. That's one of the main things for me. It's a big deal for me. So I don't know. Nana, you want to add your piece?
So if any African American were to come to Ghana, first I want to know if you're just coming on vacation. If so, I want you to book the 5-star hotels. I want you to pay for the car services that will be waiting for you. And I want you to, Charles, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay, I can't see, we lost Vera.
Right.
So if you were coming to Ghana as a tourist just to visit, I will tell you to go for the top notch. If you pay for the top notch, you're gonna get first class service. It's there. If you just want to explore business, I will encourage you to go into the farming industry. If you spit in Ghana, what you ate for lunch will grow. The land is very fertile. So if you are a business person, I will encourage you to focus on the farming industry. Also, I will encourage you to go into real estate. The construction labor is pretty cheap in Ghana. So it will not be very difficult to find the labor and pay them to put up some subdivisions and create employment and also make a great income from it. One of the things that I do, and I encourage people who have traveled to Ghana with me, is to get involved in the community. Even if you are there for 1 week, visit a school, visit a church, visit a local leader, which typically is the chief of the town, and also get in touch with some of the young men and women and have a conversation with them. Ghana is filled and is full of creative minds. In my neighborhood, Bantama, in the last year or so, most of the top recording musicians in Ghana have come from my neighborhood. Their music have been on Apple. Some of the prominent doctors that we have heard about recently in America, the doctor who took the Gorilla Glue out of the young lady's hair, I used to play basketball with him. He went to high school in my neighborhood. We were all friends growing up. The school he went to is in my neighborhood, and it has produced some of the best doctors to the world. So there is a lot to invest in Ghana. There's a lot to see in Ghana. And so I always encourage people, going to Ghana to lay on the beach is fun, but actually making some human connections is even better. So take a trip, but definitely get in touch with some people while you're there. Oh, may I add one thing?
Yes.
One of the biggest challenge that I see in my community is that there is no real enforcement on sanitation issues. By that I mean there is no dustbins around town. So when somebody buy a bottle of water or they drink it and they don't have somewhere to put it, they tend to just litter. And so littering is a big problem. And one of the things that I have been doing when I've gone to Ghana is to mobilize the community. I have bought dustbins for my neighborhood on the main streets. We put the dustbins there and we encourage people to stop littering because it does create a mess. And of course, we all know that we have to keep our environment clean. So when I go back to Ghana, I always get into community service. And one of it is the sanitation issue, and also encouraging people to keep up great hygiene, especially in this COVID era, where we all have to wash our hands 200 times. So yeah, that's what I will have you teaching sanitation if you went to Ghana with me right now. We'll be on the streets.
Washing hands, right?
Yeah, teaching the kids the importance of washing their hands and making sure that they are not littering all over the place. I can't say it enough. I mean, I go to sleep thinking about any creative ways I can come up in getting people in understanding that they should not litter where they live. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, it creates a bigger hazard for them when it rains. We have massive flooding, and it's all man-made flooding. We created that mess. So that's one of the things that I preach when I'm in Ghana. And I have to tell you, last time my mom called me and told me that some of the children in my neighborhood were chasing a grown woman who had littered a piece of plastic, and the kids took chasing after her, and the kids told her that in our neighborhood, you're not allowed to litter. So my mom called me with so much pride. She said, the kids are doing what you told them. They won't let nobody litter around here. So what can I tell you? Teach them and they will go.
That is excellent. Well, I want to thank you both for being here. I'm sorry, Vera, you had something?
No, I said with the sanitation, I totally agree with Nana on that. You know, even in Accra, Nana, it's not only a Bantama issue. Accra has a massive, massive sanitation. It's like, you know, you see people just drink water or drink something and they throw it. And, you know, coming here, and when my kids, when they eat something, they're looking for the trash or looking for recycle. Naturally, people just, when they're done, they just throw stuff on the street. So Accra has a, you know, massive sanitation issue as well.
Okay. Well, thank you both. I greatly appreciate it for International Women's Day. I wanted to celebrate this way as opposed to what folks normally do. So I appreciate you all being on this evening. I'll make sure you get a copy of the recording. And if you ever have anything that you all want to get back on and talk about, love
Yeah.
to have you both on.
Charles, so I wanted to say that I'm also an author. So my book is on Amazon. You can check me on Amazon. So Vera Bansi, Desire Life Now. I'm also on Amazon. Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, any of the outlet as well.
And your Facebook page. And it's on your Facebook page.
Yes.
So people can see it there.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. I'll stop recording and end it, and I'll get everything to you later on this evening. Thank you.
Bye-bye.